So how are Elizabeth Warren's new attacks on Bernie Sanders going to play out at tonight's debate?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Team Rising is here to weigh in on all of this. Niambi Carter, she's an assistant professor of political science at Howard University, author of American While Black, and Emily Jashinsky, she's a culture editor at The Federalist. Two great friends of the show. Welcome to you guys.
Great to see you, ladies.
Good morning. Absolutely. So, I mean, we have this brewing. I mean, we've been talking about this all day. We have this, Sanders, Warren fight. First, the Sanders or the Warren campaign aides to leak this story to CNN. The New York Times confirms. Warren comes out on the record. Emily, Sanders is in a very difficult position. His campaign has straight up said this is a lie. How is he supposed to be able to handle this on the debate stage? I think he's in a tough position and screwed no matter what he does.
I mean, I actually don't think the position is that tough because I think this is the type of story that strikes voters, especially voters in Iowa, as just ridiculous and frivolous. I think it was silly of the Warren camp to leak it. I understand why they did because this is, I mean, if you can pick anybody off at the margins, this isn't a bad way to do it, tap into the accusation that Bernie Sanders is sexist, but they leaked it without context. And so I think if Bernie Sanders brings the context of the fact that he was saying he believes there's an atmosphere of misogyny that would perhaps prevent a woman from being elected president because Donald Trump would exploit it, I think he'll be fine if he explains it like that.
That's interesting.
What do you think, Niambi?
But he hasn't explained it like that, right? I mean, he basically said these people are lying, and I never said that, which I think is a hard place to be in because if he had said, well, Donald Trump is a misogynist, I believe he's a sexist and all this other stuff, maybe, but he's out and out said he didn't say this, that this wasn't something that he would say because Hillary Clinton had beat him.
That was the context of his statement, was he did say this is not true. I said that Donald Trump is a racist, sexist, et cetera, and that would be weaponized. But I didn't say.
But he didn't say I didn't say a woman couldn't win, which is the crux of it, right? Everybody knows this.
And which I agree with Emily on this. I think that, first of all, it's a really nasty thing to level at someone who's supposed to be your friend and your ally and who you've been buddy-buddy with for a year. It's a really nasty attack to level when there's no way of confirming what was actually said in that room. And second of all, she, more than almost anybody else, has been out there saying we have to be unified, we have to come together, we have to be civil. And for her to make the most aggressive and vicious attack of this cycle so far, I think really undercuts the way that her own voters see her.
Well, here's what could be really interesting. Bernie Sanders is raring for a fight with the media and sort of about the media's bias against him or like frivolous stories in the media. I mean, there's a possibility he latches onto this and makes a really potent attack on the media that resonates with voters.
It would be smart to do that.
I do think he was careful in his denial statement I mean, he does say he didn't say it, but if he comes out and says, what was leaked is not what happened. What I said was this. He can make his case and it won't be a major issue.
Do you think that'll land, Niambi?
No, because I think at this point that's not what he said. So now it looks like backpedaling. And I actually don't think it's that nasty or that aggressive or undermines Elizabeth Warren's campaign. They are wanting to win, right? You're not going to win by playing nice. And it doesn't mean that we won't rally around the eventual nominee if it happens to be Bernie Sanders, if it happens to be Elizabeth Warren. I don't actually think that undercuts it. They are in a fight. Period. And so friends, buddy, niceness goes out the window. I think that it's a woman is what we're really reacting to.
See, but I don't agree with that part, but I do agree that, I think we should fight. But here's the strange thing. She's in the New York Times. New York Times transcript of her interview comes out today. She says, I think it's bad for a child to serve on a foreign board like Hunter Biden. Then they're like, so what about Vice President Biden? And she goes, I'm not going to do this. She's like, I'm not going to go there. She's like, you're not going to get. And so it's like, you have harsher words for Bernie Sanders, who you don't actually share that many voters with, than you do for Vice President Joe Biden, whose ideology you are supposed to be diametrically opposed to. She refuses to tee up against Biden. That's the part I don't understand. If you want to go gloves off, hey, listen, I advocate that type of politics. I think it's interesting. But like the hypocrisy on that is something that really bothers me.
I have never understood this. This goes back to 2016, and I think it goes back to mistakes that Bernie Sanders made in 2016 in laying off Hillary Clinton in particular areas where she was very vulnerable and actually deserved to be attacked on. It boggles the mind as to why Democrats are not testing Joe Biden right now on this issue because Donald Trump will, and it will not be pleasant if Joe Biden has not mustered a good defense.
Well, and here's the thing, Niambi. This is why I say it's nasty, because she doesn't want to go after him on the issues because she knows Medicare for All with the voters they're trying. Very popular. He's most trusted on healthcare. He's most trusted on climate change. Just got the endorsement of the Sunrise Movement, et cetera. So rather than go after him on the issues, which I agree, I am all for. I mean, nobody's been pushing harder for these contrasts to be made than we have. We've been begging Bernie to go after. I mean, let's have the contrast. But leaking a private conversation that cannot be confirmed what was said and leveling the charge then baselessly that he's sexist, to me, that is really nasty.
Well, I actually don't think that she said he's a sexist. What she said was he said, but exactly, and his implication is she's a liar, right? So this is where everybody is. I actually don't think this is going to go far for either of their camps, right? I think this is a story that the media latched onto, but it doesn't really move people. I mean, really, if she said he was a do-nothing senator, which she's probably going to say next, which is what I would say if I was Elizabeth Warren, will probably carry more weight.
Make that case.
And I think she will.
Yeah,
but I think she will. But we also know this other stuff matters too, right? We know these other conversations, this other chatter also matters.
Right.
Because they're both in a conversation that nobody else is privy to but the two of them. And right now, everybody is saying the other person is not telling the full truth of that conversation. And she gets to say, I didn't say it.
I think. I agree with you. I don't think that most voters, we talked to Paul Steinhauser on the ground in Iowa, New Hampshire, he's like, people don't really care. But I do think, to me, what comes out of this, the impression that comes out of this is Warren's getting desperate. It feels like what you said, like she's down in the polls. She's got to make something. I mean, this is what you said too. She got to make something happen. And I just think it's a little too obvious that that's what's going on here, that she is getting down to crunch time. She is not in position to win. And so she's throwing out whatever she can to try to make up that ground. And ultimately, when it seems that sort of cynical and obvious, the political play that's going on, I don't think that that is successful.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, I don't think it's unusually nasty for the stage of the primaries. It is interesting that it's coming between Warren and Sanders, who do purport to be friends, and they are friends, frankly. But I do think that...
Maybe not anymore.
Yeah, maybe not anymore. But I mean, if this is what we have to talk about at the debate tonight, I think it's going to be disappointing to voters in Iowa who are watching for the contrast.
And who does it help? It helps Joe Biden.
Yeah, and the weird thing,
that's who it helps.
I keep saying this has been the lamest Democratic primary in history. We went back and we looked at what Obama and Hillary were saying about each other in 2008. That was actually vicious, by the way. And 2004, same thing.
What Bill said about Obama.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it was brutal. And yet, I think part of the issue, Niambi, is that Democrats seem very afraid of launching actually negative attacks against each other because they're like, oh, that's something that Trump would do. When I think it actually does just a massive disservice to the voters by not drawing contrast.
Absolutely, but I think what it boils down to is if this is your person, anything that other person says or any critique that they get is going to always look nasty and divisive and ugly, right? And the truth is, this is where we are. We don't know what else she's going to say because she might have him focusing on this question around gender and thinking about something else that she's going to say in the debate tonight, right? So now he's focused on coming up with a defense of something that I think most of us say is indefensible. It's a private conversation that no one can confirm but the two people there.
Right.
And she might be thinking about attacking him on these other issues. We don't know.
Why do you think she came for Bernie instead of Biden, though? Because there's such an obvious, I mean, it's easy to make the ideological contrast with Biden. Our friend of the show, Zed Jelani, was pointing out, and she came into politics fighting on this bankruptcy bill that he was on the wrong side of. Now here you are toe-to-toe with him, and you're not going to make that case? What is that? Why do you think that strategy?
She probably sees the light between her and Joe Biden is far greater than the light between she and Bernie Sanders. They've been the top three, right? Pretty much. But she's closer to him probably in the polls than she is to Joe Biden, and so it probably seems like the easier case to make. Yeah. I mean, Bernie Sanders, let's be clear, besides his followers, is not beloved. He doesn't do great in the media.
That's actually not true. I mean, he has the highest favorability ratings of any of the candidates.
Yeah, but he doesn't do well with media. He just doesn't. He comes across as yelling and screaming. And I think when you're doing that, particularly a man with a personality like Bernie Sanders, everybody seems calm by contrast. And it looks like an attack on a woman. So we don't know how he's going to handle it. And I think that actually is an easier case to make than the Biden one.
Why do you think then, if he's comes across as so angry and yelly and all that, why do you think he is so popular among, I mean, the latest Morning Consult poll, he had a 75% favorability. That was the best in the field. Most trusted, like I said, on the top issues, obviously largest number of donations, et cetera. So why do you think that if that's his impression in the media, he has so much love among the Democratic base?
Well, I would wonder who in the Democratic base loves Bernie Sanders, because I don't think he has love universally. I think people view him.
75% is pretty high.
I mean, it is pretty high,
higher than any of the other candidates.
Yeah, but he's not winning, I would say, an important segment. Black women, he's not winning them, right?
It depends on
age, on age, but he's not winning them. He's not winning in South Carolina. So I still actually think I would want to see who they poll. I actually would want to see the margin of error, and I want to see who they poll, because I actually don't believe that Bernie Sanders, as much as people like him, that he cannot kind of make the case to be the front runner then. I mean, he might do well in Iowa.
Last thing I want to get Emily on this, which is I think contempt for the media is actually a good thing in this day and age. That's something that Donald Trump did. That's something that Bernie has. And that, I mean, the media is one of the most distrusted and hated institutions in this country. So to this point, I mean, I actually do think that Bernie's just irascibility and contempt for them is something that is good.
No, he taps into this appetite on the far left, and I don't even think it's isolated to the far left. I think it's
like most of America.
a lot of people. And so he taps into this, just absolute disgust with the media. And I wouldn't be surprised if he spins this particular question about the leak from Warren's camp in that light tonight. And I don't think that would be a bad idea because he's seen it have success before.
It would be really smart. All right,
ladies, stick with us. We got more on the debate coming up tonight right after this.